welcome back to Max Reaction. How are you doing today? Hopefully you're doing good. I am, and we're going to react to another subscriber requested video. I wanted to react to this anyway. This is very important and dark time in Filipino and American history. This is Bataan Death March, yes, in World War II. Let's check it out. Let's see what we can learn. Let's see what thoughts this provokes, and let's see what we can learn from this. Like I said, let's check this out.
I ask that the Congress declare that since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7th, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire. On December...
And that's scary. And it's not only like, yeah, we declared war there and they attacked Pearl Harbor, but they also, didn't they also bomb Manila also? Yes, they did, so that needs to be mentioned too, you know. If the Philippines is a commonwealth, which they are, that needs to be mentioned. It's Pearl Harbor and Manila.
8th, 1941, only a few hours after the attacks on Pearl Harbor, Japan began their offensive in the Philippines and focused on the headquarters of the U.S. in Manila.
Right.
The Japanese caught the Americans' Far East Air Force on the ground and gained air superiority in the first day.
And that's vital.
Without air support, the U.S. Navy was unprotected against the relentless attack from the Japanese Zeros, and were forced to fall back, leaving ground forces on the island to fend for themselves. These troops were malnourished, plagued with disease, poorly supplied, and outnumbered, which left them in no position to fight off a large-scale ground invasion, which began on January 7, 1942. General MacArthur continued to pull his troops back to new defensive positions as the Japanese advanced rapidly.
Right.
On February 20th, President Roosevelt realized the battle for the Philippines was unwinnable and ordered MacArthur to leave his troops and report to Australia. General Edward P.
He vowed to be back.
Control of MacArthur's 70,000 men continued to retreat to the end of the Bataan Peninsula, where they would surrender on April 9th, 1942. This was the largest surrender in the history of the United States.
Everybody was told to report back, or fall back to the tip of the peninsula at a place called Cap Cabin. And once we got there, that's when we were told that we were being surrendered and for everybody to destroy all of their arms and ammunition, which is what we did. They lined us up, they counted us, and then started us out on what is now known as the Death March.
I got a question for you guys as I'm watching this. It's bringing thoughts, you know. It brings me thoughts of the Korean War, where there were so few Filipinos and they fought off such a big amount of Chinese. What's your thoughts? Like, maybe this death march never happens if they don't give up, you know? Because I'm sure now there was way more U.S. and Filipino soldiers that could have fought off the Japanese than there was back in Korea with the small amount of Filipinos that fought such a big amount of Chinese. So should they have gave up? I don't think so. I don't think you give up, you know, because look what happened. A lot of them died anyway. So it just shows you that you should never, ever give up, because giving up, bad things happen. Terrible things happen. Things that are terrifying, you know. And we're going to learn more about this death march. I know what it is, but I don't know a whole lot about details about it. So this is going to be a real learning experience. But that's my question to you. And I would think that most of you, if not all of you, said, hell no, we're not going to give up. We're not going to give our guns down, our ammunition. Are you kidding me? I don't know. I'm not a general, but it's just a thought. They had to carry their own dead. That's so terrible.
Approximately 70,000 Filipinos and Americans were forced to march roughly 65 miles from Mariveles to Camp O'Donnell over the course of 6 days.
Wow. If soldiers could not keep up, they were executed. Ah.
One of the problems on the march was that right after the march started, one man fell down, he couldn't walk any further, and the Japanese came up and shot him.
Ah.
And so almost from the very beginning, we were able to see that if you fell down, you died.
Right.
If you stopped walking, you died. And I think from knowing that, I think the only thing we were thinking as we marched was, what can we do to stay alive?
Right. And this is a war crime. It's a war crime. They're denied water.
Japanese tortured POWs by what they called sun treatment. They made them sit in the direct sun for hours at a time without any shade.
And even though we went by numerous artesian wells, water coming out of a 4-inch pipe, constantly flowing, no more than 20-25 feet from the road, they wouldn't let anybody have a drink. Nor
Wow.
did we. They let us rest. Of course, they didn't feed us.
Look at that. The men were starved, only eating once during the 6-day march. That is so horrific.
And then I think it was around the middle of the second day that people began to collapse. You know, we hadn't had water in a day and a half. And in the tropics.
And we know how hot it gets in the Philippines, don't we? I know I do. When I go, I'm a heat guy. I love the heat. I don't like the cold. It's pretty warm in the Philippines. I think I could get used to it, and if we move there, I'm going to get used to it. But when you're not drinking anything and you're marching and you've been in the middle of war, you're not going to last long if you don't have water. And these Japanese troops, or whatever you want to call them, they're depriving these guys. It's just a horrible situation.
Tropics, it's almost beyond what you can take.
Right. Made games of hunting prisoners of war.
I was awakened by a sharp pain in my left leg. In fact, when I touched the spot that hurt, it felt warm wetness flowing from it. Then as I became awake, I saw a Japanese soldier standing over me, and he just pulled his bayonet from my leg. That's what I felt. That's what hurt so bad.
Wow.
In the quiet of this little village, quietness was broken as a soldier began screaming at me. At first I thought he was hollering for me to stand. Then I quickly realized he was laughing with his friends as he showed them the bloody bayonet. They all began to laugh loudly, sounding almost like donkeys.
Pure
As I started to
evil.
get up, he kicked me in the chest. Lester Tenney, my hitch in hell.
One of the ways the Japanese guard tortured POWs was by tying a rope around their necks and dragging them behind the jeeps.
And their body was laying there, and the Japanese convoys were coming, and they deliberately swerved out to run over the guy, maybe 12 trucks. By the time 12 trucks run over a man's body, it was like a squished frog.
Oh.
They beat us with rifle butts, they beat us with sabers, they beat us with clubs, and anything they could get their hands on. And anybody that had a steel helmet on their heads, they knocked it off with a rifle butt. And that went on all day long.
Doesn't that make your heart and soul bleed?
I'm always looking for that other thing in the road. Something that would force me to want to get there. That's how I made it. I made it because I forced myself
Yes.
to look forward to something.
Don't give up.
Constantly look forward to something that I thought I could get to.
After 5 days of continuous marching and approximately 4,000 casualties, they finally arrived at a train station in San Fernando. Here they would be piled into boxcars with approximately 115 men per car, when they are only designed to hold 40. Temperatures would reach over 100 degrees, and many more POWs would perish from heat exhaustion and suffocation.
Hauled like cargo. 54,000 of 70,000 men had survived. Once at the camp, and the conditions only worsened, which increased the death rate further.
But within the first 40 days of our being in the first camp, Camp O'Donnell, another 1,800 Americans died, and that's an average of 45 a day. And all we were doing was burying the dead. And I remember looking around and deciding that the way people were dying, within a few weeks we would all be dead.
After 3 years of captivity and starvation, General MacArthur returned in February 1945 and liberated the Bataan prisoners of war, where he found that 2/3 of the American prisoners had died in Japanese custody.
You'll never be able to talk to a former POW of the Japanese without him remembering everything that happened. There is no such thing as tomorrow. Everything is yesterday.
Right.
Because I remember yesterday's like it happened today. I'll never forget.
They're nightmares.
I'll never forget. I've learned to forgive, but I'll never forget.
Courage is a quality God has seen fit to dispense with utmost care. The men of Bataan were his chosen favorites. Major General Edward P. King. So you had to have a lot of courage, but my question is, I just keep going back to where they surrendered, because I think we already knew the Japanese at the time, they were brutal people. You know, they're gonna kamikaze. They got kamikaze planes. They're gonna fly planes into you, like they're committing suicide to kill you. So we know their tactics are really twisted. You know. Do you give up then? Do you surrender? Do you burn your ammunition, your guns? Or should you have fought like the Filipinos did in the Korean War and saved that war? You know, I'm not saying I'm smarter than a general, and I'm looking at it after the fact. Maybe they didn't know this was going to happen, but I think you always have a soldier never give up, never surrender. You know what I mean? At least that's what I think. Maybe your thoughts are different. Maybe you agree with me. I don't know. Comment down below and let me know what you agree with, what you think should have happened, and your thoughts about what happened. Anyway, I'll see you next time.